everybody, my name is Angie and I'm actually re-recording this week's video and next week's video, so bear with me. Let's get into it. So when I went to go check the audio for this week, I realized that all the audio was very glitchy. Like, nothing was synced up right. Sentences were cut off because nothing was synced up. And it was just a very unfortunate thing. And then I went and checked every single other video. And thankfully, the only other video that this happened with was next week's video too. Which makes sense. They were filmed on my old device that I have since gotten rid of. They were the last videos that I had on that device. And so I was like, oh no, I'm not putting people through that, especially for the surrogacy videos. So I was like, okay, it's go time, come up with a game plan, came and sat down to refilm everything. So for this week, what I want to go over is meeting of the parents and matching with parents, because it's a process, right? Like, it's a very interesting process, to say the least. Now, for this surrogacy, I met with 3 separate couples before I was matched and everything was good to go and the rest of the journey began. And so I kind of want to break down the process a little bit in general, and then go into the details of what it was like meeting those 3 couples and why it ended up being 3 couples. So the process itself is the most bizarre interview that you can have, right? Like, these people want to know very intimate and personal details about you, about the way you live your life. They want to know what they can and cannot have a say in, what kind of relationship that you're trying to have with, like, the parents, all of that stuff, right? And everybody that is looking for a surrogate does this very differently, and they are wanting very different things from their surrogate. So I understand why it's a process, but it's very uncomfortable. It's almost like being on an interview and you know that you have to sell yourself, but you don't know the way to sell yourself at all. Like, with a job, you know, you're like, let's say you apply to be a host, right? And I'm using that because that was what I did through all of high school, was hosting at restaurants. But, like, let's say you apply to be a host, right? There's certain things that you know they're going to be looking for. Are you hospitable? Are you friendly? Are you, like, you know, like, do you have a warm expression when you greet people, etc.?
Mom, come look what Reels have it on him.
And so you know going into it what they're looking for and what qualities of yours to highlight, right? With this, there is none of that. It doesn't exist. It is not a possibility. It is extremely difficult. Now, another part of this whole process is, at this point, you have a profile on the surrogacy whatever database. I don't know where my profile actually exists. I didn't care to know how they put the profiles out there, but you have a profile, right? And so couples are able to look at this profile before they even meet you. And the way that you meet them is through Zoom, or at least it is with this agency that I'm working with. And so they already know a little bit about you, and, like, a lot of that comes from things that the agency already asks you and stuff, and all of the questionnaire process and stuff, right? So they have, like, this general introduction to you, and there's something about you that they liked from your profile that made them think that you could be a good match. So there's also that aspect of it at play. Now, that's, like, the general little bit of it, you know, and it's not that odd, that peculiar, right? Other than the fact that, like, it will be the weirdest interview of your life, right? Now let's get into my own personal stories, because that was fun. So, So when I filled out all of the questions and stuff and answered everything for the agency, one of the things that I said one of the things that I said was I'd be willing to work with international couples. Now, I'm assuming that there's not a lot of people that are willing to do that. So all 3 couples that I met were all international. And so not only was I navigating a very intimate and personal interview, but I was also doing this with some form of language barrier, right? So that was a lot. And so the first couple that I interacted with, they seemed great, but I was like, I could already tell just from the way that the phone call was going that they didn't particularly like me. And what I think it was the tattoos. And, like, that's totally fine. I get it. So, like, certain cultures, they're still, like, that's something that, like, criminals get, right? So, I wasn't too shocked. Truthfully, I can't say with certainty that it was the tattoos. However, I talk with my hands a lot. And I noticed that when I started talking with my hands, the dad, I hope he's a dad now, the husband kept looking at my hand. Like, he would glance down, and it was noticeable on the video call. So I kind of suspected.
I'm bleeding, but it's okay. It's not dirty.
Okay, I'm glad it's not dirty.
So we can put Band-Aid on?
No. You don't need a Band-Aid, it's a scrape.
Oh yeah, scrape.
But yeah, so I could tell that it wasn't going to be a match. And, they called me and they were like, yeah, that the parents didn't choose you. And I was like, yep, totally fine, cool beans, And I kind of walked around my house and told everybody, yeah, they didn't choose me. They didn't like me. And everybody, like, was trying to console me on it. And I was just like, I was just keeping you guys updated. I genuinely didn't care. Like, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I didn't expect for the very first couple that I interacted with to like me, right? Like, I kind of assume that it's going to be a process until I find the right people. Then the second couple that I matched with, like, in terms of them wanting to interview me and stuff, hopped on that interview. And again, very lovely couple, and they actually chose me. And then, like, after a couple likes you and stuff, they go through further medical comparison and stuff to see if you're a good match, medically speaking. And then they were very quickly told, this isn't a good option. But my hope is that even though medically I wasn't a good option for them, that that interview with me at least allowed them, the opportunity to further know what they do and don't want out of their surrogate, right? Because this is a very personal relationship that these complete strangers are going to have with you, right? And that leads us to the couple that chose me and that I actually did this whole surrogacy for. Amazing couple, absolutely wonderful people. And I was very nervous at this point because I was just like, I really hope that they like me and that I get chosen. Like, these interviews are a lot. Like, at that point, I had only done 3 interviews, but it had honestly felt a little draining at that point. And I can't really explain why. It's just, like, emotionally draining, I guess, for me personally. Of just, like, I just want to make this dream come true for a couple. But in order to do that, I have to sell myself, and I don't really know how to sell myself. So it was just a little draining in that regard. But, hopped on that call, told them about myself, answered all their questions, told them how willing I was to do certain things, like cutting back on coffee and, eating fish and all this other stuff, and just really focusing on the changes I'm willing to make for a couple. And in that interview, I ultimately ended up saying, you know, I understand that physically I'm going through this, but at the end of the day, this is still your pregnancy. Like, this is still your baby. I don't want to do things that would counteract this being your baby and you as parents being able to decide what is best for your baby. Like, that is my main thing with surrogacy. And I know that there's people that might take issue with that, and I'm not saying that that's the mentality that you should have if you become a surrogate. However, I am saying that's the mentality I have as a surrogate. And I understand people immediately will throw up arms and be like, but bodily autonomy, and I'm just not that person. I am not that person. I have very specific beliefs and stuff that I have. Like, I would never get an amnio in my own personal pregnancies. I just don't care. I don't care about any of the genetic testing. It does not matter to me at all. But for this pregnancy, I actually did get an amnio. Scariest day of my life. That needle is horrifying. But the parents had a lot of concerns, very valid concerns. And so, you know, I was just very open about how I would do absolutely any of the testing that they needed to have done. Like, if they were willing to take this chance, I would respect them as the parents of this child. And I think that's ultimately what helped them choose me, especially because, again, the husband kept looking at my hand tattoo, and he spoke to his wife in their language, and she in English reiterated. So that is just common in America, right? Like, it's not like tattoos are just kind of like a common thing. Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I was like, thank goodness that you guys still chose me after that. And like, looking back on it now, I am extremely grateful that they chose them, that they chose to overlook the tattoos and everything. Because he seemed very uncomfortable with it. But, and you'll see later on in the series and stuff, I got to meet them in person, and go have lunch with them. They came to a couple appointments with me. We talked weekly, just because, you know, time differences and stuff, because they were literally across the globe. So, like, my nighttime was their morning. So communication didn't happen super often, but we stayed in contact throughout the whole thing as much as we could. And they are the sweetest people on the planet. I absolutely love them. Like, I'm so grateful to have met them. They are the absolute most adorable couple ever. And their little baby is just so sweet, and like, oh, they're going to be an amazing family. They are an amazing family. It was an adventure meeting parents, and, you know, the amount of parents that you meet varies person to person. Some people match with the very first parents that they meet, and like, that's great. Good for those people, right? I was not that person. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. So, totally fine, absolutely get it. And not matching with parents is better than matching with parents and not having a great journey. But yeah, that's the summing up of the parents. The original video was a lot longer, and I feel like that's probably because I rambled. Knowing me, I always ramble. So I'm just going to end it here because that's really all that I can say about this part of the process. And next week we will go into the mental health evaluation part of the process, because that was a mess. The only thing that really bums me out is I had live recordings from immediately before and after, so you could actually see it, and all you guys get is a summary because you couldn't hear the majority of the video. But yeah, I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for just watching this series as a whole. Okay, bye.